In this lesson, we're going to learn about the selection tools that you find on the toolbar. It on the default, but you can move it into different locations based on what you need to do. At the top of the toolbar, we find the selection tools. The primary selection tool is indicated by a white arrow, and you'll notice that when you place your mouse over that white arrow, you get additional options that appear by way of this little small circle with the white triangle. So while the selection tool is the primary tool for making selections, you also have a path selection tool available to you, as well as an animation selection tool. We're going to take a look at these top two. We'll take a look at animations in a later lesson. Alright, so the selection tool basically allows you to select an object on the screen, like this rectangle, drag it into different locations, move it on the screen, and as you use the selection tool, you'll see these control handles represented by dots that appear around your object. When you place the white cursor, the selection tool, over the top of those, you'll see little tooltips that will appear. Some kind of hints that basically that let you know what that tool is going to do when you click and move it in a particular direction. So, for instance, if I want to change the width of this rectangle, I can do that by clicking on the corner and dragging in one direction. As in most applications like this, if I hold down the Shift key and drag from the corner, I'll move things and keep them proportional. Okay? You can also click and drag from the center location as well. Now, on the outside of the selection tools are some special handles here that have different types of functions. So, for instance, when I put my cursor over this upper left-hand corner here, you see that tiny little half circle with an arrowhead on it, and that indicates that when I click and drag with my mouse, I'm going to be able to rotate this particular shape. Okay? Now, at the bottom, when I put my cursor over that little circle outside the bounding box, I get a left and right arrow, and this allows me to skew the object. In other words, change the angle of the object. And then finally, I can do the same kind of thing using the little arrows on the right-hand side or left-hand side. So again, skew from the sides and then rotate from the corners. Okay, rotate from the corners and skew from the sides. Use the solid selection handles to move and reshape and resize the object. Tool. Now let's talk about the path selection tool. Again, this is available on the toolbar. We're going to select on the path selection tool, and as you might expect, what this does is allows you to edit and select the individual items that make up this mathematical shape called a path. Each of these individual points can be manipulated by using the path selection tool. So I can move these objects easily enough. I can get some unusual shapes. Or when I float my mouse over one of these lines, we see the presence of a plus sign, which indicates I can click and add a new selection point. So I can make very complex shapes relatively quickly by using the path selection tool to click and add those paths to my shape. Okay, I'm using terms interchangeably here. Literally, the path describes the line around all these control points, and the object is what results. So, excuse me if I confuse anybody out there who might actually be kind of a graphic design geek, but these control handles, these control points, are what define the path. The path defines the object, and the path selection tool in Adobe Rome lets you work directly with those. Now, one of the cool things about this is you can actually marquee or use the path selection tool and draw a box around a portion of an object like this. And once you've got that portion of the object selected, you can then change all of those paths at one time. Let me see if I can actually do this here. Okay, so now I've got my group of points selected, and I got a tiny little gray box. It might be a little bit hard for you to see, but by marqueing with the path selection tool, I can take and basically do all sorts of free-form operations with that tool, taking any kind of shape and making it into something else. Alright, so that's the path selection tool in Adobe Rome.